Alright, what is it, my Listerine sommelier slop here back in the finals, and you already know what's going on, bro. Well, we are actually going to do things a little bit differently today. Going to be a bit more of a yap sesh than usual. I am going to go over what I feel are currently the best build loadout combinations for each specialization in the medium class as of Season 4 patch something of the finals. But yeah, bro, without further ado, let's run that hoe. So first things first, let's get the weapons out of the way. I do believe that every weapon is viable to some extent, but I will put them all into two separate categories. The Pike, AK, FAMAS, FCAR, CO40, and Model 1887 are all going to fall under what I would call the usable category. Meanwhile, I will place the Revolver, Dual Blades, and Riot Shield in the other category, which we will label yikes. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that these three weapons are like completely unusable and you're throwing if you pick them and it's impossible to be good with, but there's a reason they're in the other category. As far as the Revolver, it is quite literally a worse Pike in every conceivable way, period. Like, if you like the Revolver, which, I mean, props to you, it's fun, it's a sick weapon, but like, as far as damage-wise and TTK and numbers go, the Pike just kind of outclasses it in every way, and it has twice the magazine size, so, like, it's just better. The Dual Blades are just a worse Riot Shield, and the Riot Shield is pretty trash. Don't get me wrong, I have seen some freaking insane Riot Shield players that have absolutely clowned on me and made me feel like the weapon must be, like, S tier or something, but you can count all those players on one hand because this weapon it's just super hard to use, frankly. You're gonna have to put in hundreds of hours with the Riot Shield, and those skills are not gonna cross over to any other weapon or playstyle. So, like, if you want to, go for it, but, like, I wouldn't particularly recommend it, and it's definitely not the easiest path to the top, but, you know, it's cool, so sure. But yeah, as far as the usable weapons go, honestly, I think you can really choose any single one of these and be just as good as anyone who is using any of the other ones. Like, in my opinion, I mean, I'm not like a shotgun player, so if I use the Model 1887, I'm going to make it seem like trash, but I don't think it's bad by any means. I just think, like, it's really a preference thing at the end of the day, and you should try each weapon to really get a feel for which one you perform well with and which one you think is fun, because those are really the only two factors that matter at the end of the day. Alright, weapons aside, we are now going to get into the best combinations for each specialization, starting with the Guardian Turret. Let's go. First off, let me say, I do think that every specialization in the game for every class is definitely usable, and they're all, like, pretty comparable. There are definitely some that feel like they're a lot easier to get a grasp of, or they might have, like, a slight edge over the others, but I think every single specialization has its place, and you could become insanely cracked with, so just at the end of the day, pick which one you think's cool. That being said, though, if I did have to rank the medium ones, I would probably say Guardian Turret is the weakest, or it comes in helpful, like, the least amount compared to the other two, but it can still, like, make the difference in a fight or a match even and come super clutch. But of the three, I would say it's probably the weakest, but not by like a wide variety or wide margin. If you are a newer player or someone you wouldn't consider extremely skilled, I'd probably recommend starting out with the Guardian Turret. I think it's the most new player friendly or low skill player friendly. It's just like the most passive specialization that you don't really have to worry about. Once you get to like the cash out, you just put it in the corner facing like the room that it's in, and then you forget about it, and that's it. Whereas the Dematerializer, I would say, is definitely the hardest one. You have to like think very consciously about when to use it and like when it's gonna come in handy, basically. Anyways, gadget slot 1. This is going to be defibrillator, period. Like, no matter what specialization, no matter what weapon, period, you need to have defibrillator on your medium build if you want it to be as good as it potentially can be. And what I mean by that is, I think there are definitely builds that can be super solid without defibrillator, or almost as good as that build with a defibrillator. Like, you can decide not to run it, but you're just hindering yourself. It is definitely, without a shadow of the doubt, the best gadget in the game, bar none, and you are making your class just objectively slightly worse if you run a different gadget over defib. Medium build actually has the only 2 mobility gadgets currently in the, well, I guess Gateway's kind of mobility, but for the sake of this statement, no, it's not. Both the zipline and the jump pad are both top tier, S tier gadgets that really cannot really be matched in terms of like usefulness and viability. I wouldn't say that they're quite as mandatory as defib, and they're probably a little bit easier to get around using or replace, but it's kind of the same scenario where no matter what other gadget you choose, even if you become insanely busted with it, like you're still just a hair below like the skill ceiling of where you could be if you were running one of these top tier mobility gadgets. And while I prefer zipline and I think it's a little bit more versatile and that you don't really need to rely on like angles and shit near as much, and it's a lot easier to get a hold of, at the end of the day I think it's really just preference, and both are just insanely busted and totally viable. Just choose. Some people choose both, which you could do. I don't think you're probably, I wouldn't recommend it, but maybe. The third gadget slot is going to be much more of a dealer's choice than the other 2. There's like a few options I would probably steer clear of, but outside of that, it's really like whatever you want, frankly. Frag grenade's goated. You just really can't go wrong with it. It's a top tier option. Super easy for newer players, super good for top tier players. Like, frag's goated. APS turret is pretty solid, and I would definitely recommend keeping it in your reserve always, no matter what. I don't think I would say put it in your loadout, just because like there's so many games where you're just like never going to use it because your opponents aren't like using CO40s, or they're not like relying on grenades much or something. And while it can be super helpful when it is super helpful, there's like a lot of times where you just will go a whole tournament and not even place it once, which it's kind of a wasted slot. Glitch Trap I think has some serious versatility, but I definitely would not recommend it for newer or lesser experienced players. You gotta like really think actively about what to use it for. I know there's some crazy strats where you'll like throw it on a totem so they can't be defibbed, and got some serious potential that I personally haven't really tapped into yet, but I don't think I'd recommend it unless you're crazy high IQ. Flashbang, nah. If you're super good, you could probably make this seem busted and super versatile, but most of the time you're just going to end up flashing your teammates and being a nuisance. Gas grenade, solid choice, but I will say I would recommend gas mine over it because it's just like a more helpful, more useful version of the gas grenade. There's 2 charges instead of 1. You can bank them near the cash out, and then if somebody's stealing it, you just shoot 1 bullet at the mine, it blows up, and then it's a gas grenade. Like, it's just, gas mine's just better. So yeah, I honestly wouldn't recommend gas grenade actually. Goo grenade's super solid, super slept on, just all around goated gadget, but I will say this one's probably a little bit trickier to get a feel of if you're a newer player, but even so, I think you'd probably learn a lot and gain a lot from just figuring it out. So yeah, all around good choice, but probably not the best synergy with the turret, I will say. Pyro's solid, and if you like it, go for it. I'm not really a pyro lover. I prefer gas, mines, or frags even, but you can't go wrong. It's good. Explosive Mine used to be what I would consider S tier mandatory gadget, but they reduced it to only 1 charge, so now it's still really good, but slightly below where it was. It's probably like, it's on par with like frag or gas mine. It's really solid, good choice, good for new players. Pick it, it's great. Gas mine I already talked about, it's goated, pick it. Data Reshaper is insanely good, but it is one of those gadgets where you're not going to use it near as much as something as like a frag, but the few times that you do use it, it's a lot more helpful than something like a frag most of the time. Like being able to just delete a turret or delete a group of 5 mines around a cash out is insanely busted, and it's definitely worth a slot. Definitely keep it in your reserve no matter what, because if you're coming against a team with like 3 turrets and they're all running like 3 mines, and you want that in the reserve. So yeah, to summarize the most optimal loadout for the Guardian turret, you're going to want one of the usable weapons, defib mandatory. I'd say zipline over jump pad for Guardian turret for sure, and then either frag, gas mine, explosive mine, just dealer's choice, whatever you really want. That brings us to the healing beam, which does change things up just a titch. Obviously, you're going to want to keep defib on. That's mandatory. You need defib. Zipline probably still with healing beam, but definitely can run jump pad with any of the three, but in my opinion, zipline is just going to be your most useful. For the final slot on healing beam, I am actually going to recommend the goo grenade. Surprise, surprise. Goo grenade's super busted for if you're like in a cramped building, cut off line of sight, pocket heal, like hide behind the goo. It just synergizes extremely well, much more so than the other two specializations. So yeah, healing beam, try out goo, I'm telling you, bro. And lastly, for the Dematerializer, obviously, still defib, mandatory, you need it. And then, even though I am a zipline lover, jump pad, you'll see why, but jump pad is just the move with Demat. And for the third gadget slot, you're gonna need either explosive mines or gas mines, and you'll also see why. If you go above an enemy's cash out vault, place a jump pad, and then dematerialize the floor open, it'll drop on the cash out box and just like launch it up. So you can just raise vault stations, complete floors, or completely just move them to different areas of the map. And even though they reduce the explosive mine charge to 1, you can just put 2 above an enemy. Like if they're in the room below this, blammo, they're done. So yeah, while jump pad or mines may not exactly be your thing, if you are into the Dematerializer, it opens up some pretty crazy synergies and combos that can lead to some awesome results that you wouldn't be able to really do with anything else. So yeah, but I believe that is all my thoughts when it comes to the best combos and synergies for the medium build in the finals. I would love to hear your thoughts though. Are you like Slop? We have the exact same thought process and run the exact same identical loadout. Or are you like Slop? You are the dumbest idiot I've ever heard. I only run dual blades with flashbang, and what else did I hate? I don't know, whatever. But, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, that is going to be all she wrote for today, but we will be right back on that Season 4 grind tomorrow, so if you'd like to follow along, make sure to like and subscribe, or you're a stupid, dumb idiot, weenie head face. We will be shaving the dome ball at 1K subs, so tap in already, bruh. But, other than that, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you tomorrow, Slop. Out.
Sticking out your yacht for the Rizzler. You're so skibbity. You're so Phantom Tax. I just wanna be your Sigma.